our last morning together, but hopefully not our last morning with Manjushri. So take the practice home. People often say, what do I do when I go home after a retreat? You just do the same practice you were doing at the retreat. Yeah, you do the same thing. And, especially with the Lamrim meditations, you can cycle through the Lamrim, or if there's a special one that you really need to do that day because of something you're handling, something that's come up in your life, do that. But otherwise, just continue on. And you're in a very good habit now, practicing morning and evening and even in between. So when you go back to the unreal world, you can continue with that. Okay? Yeah, don't think that this is unreal and you're in reality when you're rushing around like a chicken without their head. That's the unreality, yeah. That's the ordinary view. That's the view of inherent existence. Yeah, when you're just swimming in your own stuff all the time. So here you have some clarity, so stick with that. And also, when you leave, the tendency is like, oh, I'm so excited. I've done without coffee for a whole week. Where's the nearest Starbucks? Yeah, really, some people are like that. And, where's the nearest McDonald's? Or how about the steakhouse? I've gone without meat for too long. And don't do that to yourself, okay? It's not so good for your system. And also don't just go sit in the car or wherever you are, go to the airport and watch the television, put on the radio and, hear the latest. Yeah, but try and keep your mind in the Dharma. And when you do go home and you're with the people that you live with and people you care about, they're the foremost people to be kind to. Remember that. And you may be very excited to tell them everything you did, but they want to tell you everything they did in that week too. The washing machine broke, they ran out of gas, they had a flat tire. They want to share their week too. And yeah. And also don't feel like you have to tell everybody every experience that you had in your meditation. That's personal, and it's not something to blabber about to friends. It's, if you need to talk to your teacher or a spiritual mentor, you do that. But you don't go around saying, I had this one meditation that was gorgeous. Manjushri was in the sky in front of me and showered down. And I just felt filled with, Manjushri, beautiful energy. I'm sure Lama Yeshe was doing that. No, Manjushri, no, it was His Holiness down. Everybody, your friend wants to get the washing machine fixed, because it broke. Yeah, they're not particularly interested in that at that particular moment, okay? So, we have to, this is part of the skill, I think, in showing compassion for sentient beings, is figuring out what to say when and what not to say when, okay? So imagine feeling like a parent with their one lone child, the kind of loving compassion that you might feel if you don't want to imagine being a parent or can't imagine being a parent, then just think of, whoever you have a strong feeling for, and having that impartial love and compassion that doesn't have strings attached, that doesn't want anything from the other person. And yeah, so start with that. And then spread that feeling gradually towards others, towards friends, strangers, and even the people you're afraid of. And then see that you can help them in this life by doing many sorts of things that directly benefit them. And that's good, but none of those things helps them get out of samsara. So develop the intention to become fully awakened so that you will have the ability to guide and teach others in a very skillful way to lead them out of their samsara. And that way generate bodhicitta. Okay, so we left off with which phrase? Yesterday seems a long time ago. Clearing away the darkness. Okay, so we finished clearing away the darkness. We're done with clearing away the darkness. It's gone. Yeah, no, it's not. It's still there. Okay. Okay, so, the darkness of ignorance, I think that's kind of apparent, The different kinds of ignorance. Of course, the fundamental one is the ignorance that grasps true existence, but also the ignorance of cause and effect, the ignorance of karma and its results. And at the beginning of the path and all through the path, we have to be quite aware of how karma functions. Yeah, because we have to start with the conventional in order to get to the ultimate. We can't skip over it and say, this world's screwed up, and I have my reservation at my cave. We've gone through that a lot. But, we live in a conventional world and we have to get our act together. And so that involves clearing away the first type of ignorance, which is the ignorance of karma and its effects, okay? Which is not, repeat, not a system of reward and punishment. It's just you create certain causes, you get those effects, the corresponding effects. You don't create the causes, you don't get the effects. Yeah, so when things happen that we don't like, don't say, why does this happen to me? If if you have faith in karma and believe that, our actions have an ethical dimension, okay, I experience problems, I created the causes, nobody else to blame. Yeah. And when good things happen, don't get all proud, look at me, na, 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 na. It's like that's a result of our good, our virtuous actions too. And so make the determination to keep on purifying our ethical conduct. Yeah. And then as we do that, then we can start to think about emptiness and overcoming the ignorance of the ultimate nature. But if you don't have a good foundation in understanding the law of karma and its effects, you can easily misinterpret things that are said about realizing emptiness. For example, sometimes you hear in Tantra, they're speaking of the high yogis, oh, there's no good, there's no bad. We hear that a lot thrown around in the West. There's no good, there's no bad. When you have realization, you can do anything you want. And then you have people who have no realization doing anything they want, thinking that it's crazy wisdom. And I've seen that. I saw at one conference, a Buddhist conference, one person get up and start throwing the zaffos and zabatons around, saying, this is crazy wisdom. And it was crazy. I didn't understand the wisdom part of it. Okay, but this person thought that they were doing some kind of fantastic tantric practice. Sorry. Yeah. And I think that kind of thing happens too, people rationalizing, and that's how, sexual abuse occurs in Buddhist centers too, because people think, oh, I have realizations. They don't have realizations. But you think, I practice Tantra, so, I'm almost there. And I can do whatever I want because there's no good and there's no bad, There was one, I'm getting off topic, but this is a good story. So there was one Westerner who, and he's still around. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing now. But he was acting in such a way as to make people realize that he had realized emptiness and, talking about experiences and things like that. And and I don't know, I don't have the letter here, the thing he wrote talking about, how highly realized he was. But Lama Zopa replied and said, Gelangma Palmo, who is the nun who is the founder of the Nune tradition, the Thousand-Arm Chenrezig fasting puja tradition. And Rinpoche said to this guy, she was highly realized and she cut off her head and then she reattached it So could you please show us that too, since you are highly realized? That was a good response, wasn't it? You know, you claim these things. Yeah, show us. We didn't. He didn't. It was a secret practice, I guess. So, okay. Okay. I think the real people the people who have real realizations are not the people who go about bragging. Yeah. So, did you know Geshe Thubten?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Whenever, when I was at the relic school, very often attending Sojourn, Posada, and walking back, he would be nobody would think that he's anything.
Yeah.
But a beggar, maybe, even less than that.
Yeah.
The way he would wear his robes, very old ones, way up, and then walking with his sticks, and weak, and there's nothing in the sense of a worldly charisma around him.
Nothing. Yeah. And yet, he was a meditator up above Dharamsala, in a little hut. And his attendant, who went to school with you, would...
And he eventually became a yoga teacher.
A yoga teacher.
Yoga teacher who learned his yoga skills from Baba Ramdev. It was initiated by having a physical problem that he tried all the means which could not cure it. So then he said, why not try? Why not follow Baba Ramdev and then see what his yogas does? And it really healed him. And he shared it with others, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And at His Holiness's recommendation, he also had the opportunity to present it to His Holiness Sakyatin Rinpoche.
Wow.
Yes. And speaking of Geshe Thubten, among his classmates, he was like the topmost in scholarship while they were in their study years.
Yeah. But you wouldn't know it looking at him. It was exactly like Geshe described. His robes hucked up, a few whiskers, and his socks falling down. And he just looked like a shabby old monk. But anyway, he was the meditator up above Dharamsala. And his attendant who brought food said every week, his attendant walked up there, even in the winter, and brought food and went inside. He never once saw any of Geshe-la's tantric implements or pictures or anything. Nothing. Yeah. So he was he was quite something. So that shows us for me, it shows me a very good example, rather than the ones who have lots of charisma and strut around with a lot of ingis after them going, my teacher's a Buddha. I don't know, that kind of dynamic just doesn't do it for me. Yeah. Okay. It helps some people. It doesn't do it for me. Okay, so you whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha. So this is talking about the Buddha's physical appearance. Yeah, remember his body's made of light. Yeah, Manjushri's body is made of light. And this is according to ancient Indian tradition, which predates Buddhism. They had the idea that a special human being had 80 32 signs and 80 marks that were products of their actions that they did. So in Nagarjuna's Precious Garland, he talks about all the causes for those different physical traits. Yeah. So you might say, I don't know, why do I have to, I'm not interested in Manjushri's body. I want to know it Manjushri's mind, But if you realize that the physical appearance is a manifestation of his actions and the actions were motivated by the mind, then you can get some feeling for what he did on the path to create the causes for how he looked when he attained awakening. So those are the 112 marks. You've completed the stages, achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva. So 10th bhumi. Next step, full awakening. Okay. But he's been pure from the beginning. Like I mentioned before, the mind has always been empty of inherent existence. So that, and that's the basic Buddha nature. And that, has always been there. It needs to be realized. And so when you realize emptiness, what you're doing is you're purifying your mind, and you're beginning, if emptiness is the emptiness of the mind is the Buddha nature, then you're really realizing the Buddha nature too in yourself. But it's something that's a very gradual process. It's not like, whammo, I finally did it, Yeah, 3 days and 3 hours. I'm a Buddha. Yeah, last night actually, His Holiness was, they say that you can do retreat for 3 years, 3 months, and is it 3 weeks or 3 days? The last part, 3 months, 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. Okay, and so lots of people think I'll go on retreat, and then I'm going to come out as a Buddha after that time. So His Holiness was saying, at least in the English translation last night, he said, I have some doubt about that. Okay, so I bow down to you, Manjushri, Manjushri. So, seeing Manjushri's qualities, both on the method side of the path, the great accumulation of merit, how it manifests physically, his loving compassion for sentient beings, and also on the wisdom path, his ability to know, the ultimate nature, as well as how karma functions and leads sentient beings on the path. Then seeing those qualities to express our respect and our reverence, we bow down. Okay. With the brilliance of your wisdom, O compassionate one. That's a phrase that has method and wisdom together in one phrase, okay? So with the brilliance of your wisdom, O compassionate one. So it's through the compassion and the bodhicitta that we create the collection of merit on the bodhisattva path. That's called the method aspect of the path. And then the wisdom, meditating on emptiness, is the collection of wisdom, or creates the collection of wisdom. So we show our respect to Manjushri, and then we ask for help. Yeah, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind. Now, as we talked before, that doesn't mean Manjushri's going to sweep down and tap us on the head with the sword, and then whammo, we got it. But this whole thing of requesting blessing or I like to translate it as inspiration rather than blessing. Blessing is too Christian of a term for me. It doesn't mean much for me personally, so I don't use that term. Some people like it. I don't. So in writing, preparing to write the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, I was able to ask His Holiness a lot of the questions that Westerners have. And one of these questions was about blessing. How does blessing or inspiration, how does it work? Yeah, I want to know, how does it work? Yeah, tell me. This causes that, brings this, and then that. And, I want to see the diagram of how we get from here to here. And, and I also mentioned this story that the Tibetans love about one guy. He was going on pilgrimage, and his mother said, "Please bring me back a Buddha relic when you come." And he went away on pilgrimage. On his way walking back, he realized, oh, I forgot to bring a relic. My mom is going to be really disappointed and unhappy. And at that time, when he was walking around, he saw the skeleton of a dead dog. So he pulled out a tooth from the skeleton. So he had a tooth of the dog. And when he got home, he had wrapped it up very specially and given it to his mother and said, "Mom, this is a relic of the Buddha." And the mother put it on the altar, and she prayed to that relic day and night. And she got some kind of realizations. I don't know what exactly, but something, okay? And so the moral of the story is, it's not the object, it's your faith. Yeah. But there's something that bothered me and bothers a lot of Westerners about that story, because does that mean that we can just pick up a dog's tooth and start worshiping it and realize emptiness? That didn't seem quite in line with Buddha's teachings, that it's just your faith. And especially the way His Holiness always says, that's just blind faith. And, you need faith that comes from understanding and examination. So I asked him about that story, and he kind of said, that's like old folks' story, something like that. I said, well, how does, who can give a blessing? What can give you a blessing? So then he started talking about FDR. Yeah. Those of you who aren't American, FDR was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, okay, who was the what number president? Probably around, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. He was a president during the end of the Depression and into the Second World War, and he was the one who started the New Deal. He was quite a good president, actually, in terms of doing things for the people. And the war is another thing. But so Leah said, "Do you think that you can get a blessing from FDR?" At which point, of course, I started to giggle. And, I could just see FDR with his fires. He was known for fireside chats with the public, sitting in his wheelchair by the fireplace with the fire going, bestowing blessings. With, the pen that he used to sign the different bills. So, presidents, like when they sign bills, they use a lot of pens, and then they give the pens away to the people around them as souvenirs. So they'll write, one letter with one pen and give it away, and the next letter with it. Yeah, it takes a long time for them to sign a bill. Okay, but people get the blessing of the pen. So, I couldn't just imagine FDR kind of bestowing inspiration to practice the path. Yeah? Or motivating me to practice the path, inspiring me to practice the path. And by His Holiness saying that, do you think he can give a blessing, give inspiration? It's like, no. And that led me to think, well, why do I think I can receive something when I pray to Manjushri or the Buddha or somebody else? Well, because they have some special quality, So it's a reciprocal, not reciprocal, it's a codependent, a good kind of codependency, yeah, where there's something coming from the realized being who gives inspiration, but there's something coming from my side too that is receptive and, allows my mind to be invigorated and inspired. Okay. I still don't have the flow chart of how it works, but I do have more confidence in the Buddha's giving blessings, and I don't worry much about FDR and dog's teeth. Okay? But it does make you think, there's something coming from, somebody who's a holy being, okay, to put it in conventional terms, has some kind of vibe. Yeah? They have some kind of vibe. You're sitting in an audience, and I've seen this, at a public talk filled with people who, they just want to go because His Holiness is famous. They're not Buddhists. They don't want to become Buddhist, but they go. And I've seen people just, His Holiness walks on stage just to give a talk, and people start crying. These people who aren't Buddhists, who just start crying. And I talk to them afterwards, what happened? I don't know. But there was something about him that made me start to weep. Yeah? So I guess vibes are real. Yeah? But you do get vibes from people, don't you? I mean, when somebody's mad, you get a mad vibe. Yeah? And you stay away. Okay. So, O compassionate one, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind. When we say that, when we're calling out to Manjushri, like that, asking him, illuminate the darkness in my mind, which is really a way of saying, I need to work harder and try and illuminate the darkness. But please help me, Manjushri. Please inspire my mind. And that is coming from a part of us. It's not, when you do it glibly, it's just, I'll drink tea and Manjushri, you illuminate my mind. But when you say it, when something's going on inside, you say that, and what you're really doing is saying, I have this aspiration of what I want to become, and it's so astounding, so massive that I can't imagine doing that, myself becoming like that. So please inspire me, please help me to do that. I need, you know the path, you know what you need to do, but it's daunting, and you want some help. Okay? So when you're calling out to Manjushri, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, awaken my intelligence so that I may gain insight into the Buddha's words and the texts that describe them. What you're doing is putting forth, you're communicating to Manjushri your own, your own motivation, what's in your heart. Okay? And this is, I think, in a psychological way, very, very helpful for our practice. Yeah? So we don't feel like, oh, I'm just floating alone in samsara and I have the teachings and I know what to do, but, and I know what I need to do, but, is there a little, what little kids have when they're in the water, the little tubes? Yeah, the very fragile little tubes. And I'm like a baby floating on the water of samsara, with this inner tube being the only thing that's keeping me up from drowning. Yeah. And so, Manjushri, will you please make sure that inner tube stays there, and maybe, can you help it be a little bit less fragile and firmer and support me as I go about practicing the path? Okay? So I think that helps our mind to really see that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have us in mind, and they're rooting for us, and they're doing what they can, And we have to be open. Yeah? When our minds are like this, the sunlight can't get in. Okay? So the sun is shining. Knock, knock, let me in. No way to get in. Okay? So same with our mind. Okay, so it's something cooperative going on here. The learning, the study, the hearing, thinking, meditating, and the support of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas whose texts we're reading and who are telling us how to follow the path. Okay. Any questions about any of this?
Just wanted to clarify, because you said you think of blessings as a form of inspiration, and you said that it's not something that ever interested you, or you didn't connect with blessings on us specifically. I always thought blessings was like a form of metta practice, where it's like, may all beings in this room be safe, like may all beings practicing on this retreat have inspiration. It's like wishing well as a form of, like, are you familiar with Dipama from the Vipassana movement? So apparently she blessed everything, and that was one of her main teachings, was to bless everyone and everything as a form of like metta practice. Do you think that's something that resonates with you?
I mean, I don't care whether you call it blessing or don't call it blessing. She had some power to influence people. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So not she, but she said, as a teaching, she said that everyone should, like, if we have Buddha nature, right, and we're trying to cultivate goodwill for all beings, shouldn't that, like, isn't, for example, in the Angulimala apparently was walking by someone who was pregnant, and he had a lot of compassion for her, but he didn't know what to do, and he asked the Buddha, and he said, give her a blessing. And he says, I don't know any blessings. Just come up with something. And he said, since I've been a part of the holy life, I cannot recall a time where I have killed a living being.
Who said that?
Angulimala.
No, that's not true. He killed many living beings.
No.
But you're saying
since taking on the holy life.
Okay.
I have not recalled a time where I have harmed another human being by this truth. May you be blessed.
Right. So
our precepts are a blessing, basically.
Yeah. Fine. Great. I don't care what you call it. These things have power. The word blessing, I still don't know what it means, but I don't think the word's important. By the way, Dipama, who he was talking about, was a Burmese or Indian woman who lived not too long ago. Some people who are alive today knew her. And she practiced very, very intensely. In fact, she died in the middle of bowing to the Buddha. In the middle of prostrating, she just died. But she had some kind of special physical powers as well. And people would, they would try things out and have somebody had it so that she had an appointment at one place, but somebody else in another place saw her levitating, So, yes, she had some kind of power. But just having those powers doesn't indicate that you have realizations of the path. Those powers can come from very deep concentration as well. In her case, I think she had realizations because she was a very sincere practitioner. Okay. There's a book about her. So we've done the compassion, observing sentient beings, seeing them as drowning in samsara, having compassion for them, buffeted around like the bucket in the well. And we talked about compassion, observing phenomena, meaning observing the aggregates and seeing the aggregates as impermanent, and then also seeing that there's no, it's observing sentient beings and seeing them as impermanent, but seeing how much they suffer from grasping at permanence. Looking at sentient beings, seeing there's no permanent, partless, independent self, but how much they suffer grasping at such a self. Okay, seeing sentient beings as not as free from a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, and but knowing how much they revolve in samsara out of grasping the existence of such a self. Okay, so the way the compassion works is we see sentient beings as having that kind of grasping and what they suffer from due to that grasping through creating karma, through the arising of afflictions, through the creating of karma. But we, when you're the practicing bodhicitta, and you're trying to develop the wisdom side too, you look at them as empty of these kinds of things. Okay? So it kind of, it's going two ways, We see them as empty of having these qualities, like a self-sufficient, substantially existent person. And that helps us see other beings more accurately instead of us seeing them as a self-sufficient, substantially existent person, which just messes up the whole thing. But then we see them as grasping that and how much suffering they experience due to that. So that comes from having meditated on impermanence and so forth beforehand, and then the effect of that carrying over to when you meditate on compassion for sentient beings. Okay? Then we started yesterday talking about the compassion of the unapprehendable. And so this is similar, seeing that sentient beings are not inherently existent, which completely changes how we relate to them. Yeah. And so that us seeing them in that way, is a big thing to open our mind to having compassion for them, because then we see how much sentient beings suffer from grasping at an inherently existent person. Okay? So I'm saying we see them as free of inherent existence. I'm just talking the general we. I don't mean that all of us sit down and do that, Okay? But, and that's where we had the analogy. Well, we had the analogy of the moon reflecting in the pond and it having two meanings. Yeah. One is when the breeze moves the water, the ripples come, and the moon is moving, and how that indicates impermanence, and then also just focusing on the reflection of the moon and how it appears that there's a real moon there, but there's not. And so similarly, sentient beings and all phenomena appear to have some inherent essence, whereas they don't. So they appear like illusions. You got to remember the like. Yeah. Like illusions. Or, yeah. Okay. Okay, so Buddha Palita, in his commentary on Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle way, challenges, if phenomena exist inherently in their own right, what need is there to characterize them as being dependent on other factors? So you're meditating here on sentient beings being dependent. If they are inherently existent, why do you even need to meditate on them being dependent? Because inherent existence is the same as independent existence. So if you're somebody who accepts independent existence, true existence, why are you meditating on dependency? It doesn't make any sense, because you don't really believe in dependency if you're grasping like that. And so I think here he's talking to Buddha Palita. Poor Buddha Palita is getting picked on again. That poor guy. Yeah. Bhava Viveka, yes. Oh, sorry. They both start with B. I get them confused. Yeah, poor Bhava Viveka. Yeah. He doesn't have any chance to defend himself because he says, well, actually, all the lower schools say, yes, the self is impermanent. There's no permanent, partless, independent self, but the self is also dependent. And so what they're asserting are two contradictory things. Because if it's dependent, it can't be independent. And independent is synonymous with inherent existence or true existence. Okay, so Buddha Palita threw out this quandary, okay? So if they possess an inherent existence, when we ask what is the true referent of a term, we should be able to point to it and say, that is it. Okay, can we do this? Here's a gong. Yeah. What is the gong? Can you point to something that is the gong? That is, not appears to be, not acts as, but is the gong. Yeah? A gong. A gong's a gong. Yeah. I mean, we all say, oh, here's a gong, don't we? And when we say here's a gong, we don't think, oh, it's like an illusion. I mean, you can touch it. You can bang it. You can make a racket with it. Yeah, it has its own nature as a gong. Then what is that nature? What is it? Yeah? If you have, was it Superman who had eyes that could see through things? It's one of the characters I grew up with. Was it Superman? Yeah, with this X-ray vision. So you have Superman or Superwoman's X-ray vision to see through this and search this whole thing, looking for the gong. What do you come up with? Nothing. Yeah. You're looking for what you think is the gong out there, objective, that any idiot knows is a gong. But when you look for it, there's nothing there. You can't identify something. But it appears. When you look at it one way, it appears. When you look at it another way, you can't find anything the word gong refers to. Okay? So we should be able to point to something and say, this is what it is. When you try that with the word I, trying it with gong is like, okay, I get the argument. That's not a big thing. Okay, I can't find the gong. Yeah, but I can still ring it. Try it with the word I. Yeah. What does the word I or me refer to? Yeah. I'm here. Don't you believe you're here? I'm here. I'm taking up this space. I'm paying attention, or I'm sitting here saying, when's there going to be a break? But I'm here, and something's going on. Don't tell me I'm just an appearance. I am here. And I can control things. So I think, yeah, I feel like I can control things. We take what we feel so seriously. Yeah, I feel like I can control my body. Yeah, look, I can control my body. I go like this. Yeah, there's a real me that is in control of this thing. Yeah, yeah. Who is in control of this thing? Who's the I that is in control? Who's the I that's giving the orders? We feel like it's there. Who in the world is it? Yeah. Oh, it's in my heart. It's in my heart. My heart is me. Yeah. Ask a heart surgeon if he found you when he did the bypass. Yeah. You think your heart surgeon finds who you are in there? Blum, blum, blum. Are you, which ventricle are you? Which artery vein are you? What's the oracle? Or atrium. Atrium, oracle, yeah, same thing. Which atrium is it? Who am I? Am I both of them? Actually, I have 2 atriums and 2 ventricles, so maybe there's 4 me's. There's the one who's happy, there's the one who's miserable, there's the one who's funny, and there's the one who doesn't know what in the world is going on. Yeah, so there's 4 different me's. The psych hospital is down the road. Yeah, you want to pay a visit? Okay, it's something to think about. Does that mean there are no sentient beings who are worthy of compassion because we can't find sentient beings when we search for them? How am I going to have compassion for you if I don't know who in the world you are? If I can't locate you? Yeah. If I don't know you. Okay. So this is referring a little bit. Wait a minute. Remember the quote that we did yesterday? That was from Nagarjuna, that apart from the mere aggregates, no sentient being exists. You uphold, talking to the Buddha. Yet, great sage, you continue to remain perfectly immersed in the welfare of beings. So what we've been saying so far is referring to the first two lines. Apart from the aggregates, there's no sentient beings that exist. But the aggregates are not the sentient beings. Okay, but if you don't have aggregates, you're not going to have a sentient being. But they are not the sentient being. Okay, you're looking at me like, huh, what's going on? Okay, so is this brass? Okay. Is brass the gong? Okay, you can't find the gong separate from the brass. But the brass is not the gong. Okay, so we are none of our aggregates, of our physical or mental aggregates, but we don't or can't exist without them. So we depend on them, but we are not them. Okay, how do we depend on them? By mere designation. Does that give you the heebie-jeebies? Yeah? Mere designation, mere name. No, I've got to be more than a mere name. You know, I'm really there. It's not a mere name. Yeah. I have some relationship with my aggregates that is cast in concrete. Yeah. I am my aggregates. Because I'm sitting here. Yeah. Good luck finding yourself. Yeah, but it certainly feels like it's there. So Nagarjuna praises the Buddha for being completely immersed in working for the well-being of sentient beings, despite, or maybe because of, sentient beings not being findable under ultimate analysis. So ultimate analysis is when you're looking for what the object really is. You're looking for the referent of the word and concept. Okay. So we don't have time for all of this. Okay, here's another one from Nagarjuna. This is from Commentary on Bodhicitta. In brief, the Buddha taught that agents, actions, and consequences are, in conventional terms, empty things generated from empty things. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies again. You know, I don't know. It's not heebie-jeebies. That's not heebie-jeebies. I'm getting the. Well, it is. It's heebie-jeebies. Okay. I want to make sure I'm using the right name to identify heebie-jeebies. Okay. You know what I mean.
The creeps, maybe it's more generational. Heebie-jeebies, they might not know what heebie-jeebies.
Oh, yeah. You know heebie-jeebies. Yeah, she's young. She knows heebie-jeebies. Okay. Some things are timeless. Do you have heebie-jeebies in Singapore? Oh. We can spread them there. Actually, I think they're there, but you just don't have the name yet. Okay. Oh, okay. You don't know heebie-jeebies. Oh, okay. heebie-jeebies are what you get when you feel like you really, really exist, and then you read a line like the Buddha's taught that agents, actions, and consequences are, in conventional terms, empty things generated from empty things. That's unnerving. Heebie-jeebies are what you get when you're unnerved. Is unnerved a word? Yeah, it's unnerving. It's like, yeah, you're shaking a little bit inside. Yeah. Okay, can somebody spell heebie-jeebies for Geshe-la?
Heebijeebi. It's from a song by Louis Armstrong, and he's hot five. Did you read that?
Spelling again, slowly.
Heebiejeebies. That's from a song by Louis Armstrong and his Hot Five. And it means anxiety or apprehension, depression or illness.
No. Yeah, like the jitters. Yeah. But jitters because of unnerving, being unnerved.
Nervousness. Condition of extreme nervousness.
No, it's not that. No.
Like when you get a chill?
No.
Jitters, the willies.
Huh?
The jitters, the willies. The willies.
The willies. What are the willies? Okay, let's go back to Nagarjuna. Okay, maybe we can understand Nagarjuna better than we can understand the willies and the heebie-jeebies.
From an existing Tibetan traditional story, that's the question when from what Venerable already shared with us about someone who needed to craft,
Yeah.
just the feeling preceding that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're unnerved, and it's like, yeah.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah.
So in that case, I got the EBGB right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so sentient beings are burdened. Oh, there's another verse by Nagarjuna. In this way, it follows the previous one. In this way, when yogis practice meditating on that emptiness, without a doubt, they grow attached to the well-being of others. Now you're going to go, wait a minute. I just got the heebie-jeebies because empty things are generated from empty things, and I can't find any people there to have compassion for. But then, so Nagarjuna just got that across me, and now he's saying that when the yogis meditate on emptiness, they have attachment to the well-being of others, and attachment is an affliction, and there aren't any others. So what in the world is going on here? Okay, maybe is Nagarjuna, did he, the Tibetans say, what is it, datura? Datura, like we call it acid or psilocybin, like a drug, a hallucinogenic drug. Yeah. So I think the Tibetans have datura. Yeah. So did Nagarjuna take datura? That he's saying that, empty things are generated from empty things, but now he has attachment for sentient beings? But there aren't any sentient beings. They're empty. So, and why is he having attachment? That's an affliction. Okay, so people could look at what Nagarjuna is saying and say, what's this guy talking about? Okay. Yeah. So what's going on is, from looking at things from the ultimate point of view, you can't find something that is a sentient being. Yeah, something that you can draw a circle around and say, that is it. Yeah. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that nothing exists. Okay? Things exist. How do they exist? Dependently. So you have all the parts, you have all the causes and conditions. None of those are the person. Yeah. But our conceptual mind can look at that and say, oh, it's a person, and give a definition to it, and it functions according to the definition. Okay. But when you use ultimate analysis to examine what it really is, you can't find it. There's a very beautiful dialogue between the King Mahinda and one monk who visits him. And they have this dialogue about a chariot. And what is the chariot? Yeah. I won't tell you the whole story here. It's at the beginning of Volume 8, which will be published, hopefully, in December of this year. Yeah. Yeah, but it tells the whole story. It's a very interesting dialogue they had. Yeah. Okay. So the two truths are perceived by different kinds of mind. Ultimate truth is known by the probing awareness that investigates how how an object really exists. And veiled truths, or what we call conventional truths, are known by reliable conventional cognizers. Yeah, that do not investigate how something exists. They just take things at face value. Okay, so one of my teachers used to, like look at the thermos and say, to illustrate these two things, there is a thermos on the table, but there is no thermos in this object. Okay, there is a thermos on the table. That's the conventional reality. But if we examine what the thermos is, inside this object, there is no thermos. Yeah, I think that's a very brilliant way of putting it, encapsulating it, There's a person sitting here on the cushion, but there's no person inside this thing. Okay, heebie-jeebies coming. Wait a minute, I'm sure there's a person inside there. If there's no person inside there, then I've died, or I don't exist, or something's happened. There's got to be me. I mean, they're going to write an obituary about me. I must exist. Yeah? But when they write the obituary, I'm already dead and I don't exist. Yeah? So I'm cheated out of enjoying my own obituary, because obituaries always say about how wonderful you are. So it's going to be the only time when nobody's criticizing me. So I really want to read it. But I'm denied. I can't read my own obituary. Some people write their own obituaries, yeah? And I guess they have great faith that their relatives will publish them as is. Yeah, without modifying them. Yes, he really did all that, and he was really that great. And sometimes... Okay. So, are yogis, when they meditate on sentient beings, are they attached to the well-being of others? Why does this verse say that they're attached to the well-being of sentient beings? Isn't attachment an affliction?
I think that's another name for compassion.
Yeah.
Here, attachment is used for compassion,
Yeah.
in the way compassion functions in bringing oneself closer to them. And here, more particularly, due to the very reason of seeing them to be lacking in inner existence, as opposed to how they appear to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't take attachment as literal, the word attachment as literally meaning attachment. It implies, like Geshe-la said, that intense loving compassion that cares for sentient beings, that is involved with the welfare of sentient beings. And that's what attachment means there. But don't confuse that with the attachment you have for your dear ones. They're very different. Okay. So seeing sentient beings as empty of existing from their own side protects compassion and altruism by preventing afflictions from arising when we seek to benefit sentient beings. Okay. So, if we're not highly realized and, we're practicing compassion and altruism and we benefit somebody, there could be a little bit of a mind that says, I'm a very good bodhisattva. Yeah, look at me, what I did. Or those sentient beings are very proud of me and they're going to talk well about me and they're going to do some favors for me afterwards. Okay, so seeing sentient beings as empty of inherent existence protects us from having that kind of compassion or altruism that is sticky with afflictive attachment. Because we see them as empty, we see there's nobody there to get attached to. And there's nobody here to have the attachment. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's another quotation from the Diamond Sutra. Subhuti, that was one of the great bodhisattvas. Subhuti, what do you think? You should not maintain that the Tathagata has this thought, I shall take living beings across, meaning the Buddha taking living beings across the ocean of samsara. Subhuti, do not have that thought. And why not? There are actually no living beings taken across by the Tathagata. If there were living beings taken across by the Tathagata, then the Tathagata would hold the existence of a self. Yeah, the existence of others, of living beings, and of a life. Subhuti, the existence of a self, spoken of by the Tathagata, is no existence of a self, but common people take it as the existence of a self. Okay, so you have to understand something about emptiness and dependent arising to understand what in the world the Buddha is talking about in this passage. But it's really quite beautiful because we think, oh, there's a Buddha and there's sentient beings and the Buddha is, taking sentient beings across the ocean of samsara by teaching them. And here the Buddha is saying, if that were true, then the Buddha would hold things as inherently existent. He would see himself, an inherently existent Tathagata, taking across inherently existent sentient beings across the inherently existent ocean of samsara to an inherently existent nirvana. And he's saying, no, that's not the case at all. Okay? That when the Tathagata uses the word self, there is no existence of a self, meaning no existence of an inherently existent self. There is the conventional self. But common people take, when you say the word self, or when they think of self, they take what is only a merely imputed self and think of it as a real self. Yeah, so completely seeing things upside down from how they are. Things are empty of inherent existence. Sentient beings grasp them as having inherent existence. Okay. Living beings who arise dependently do exist. It is these living beings that the Tathagata takes across to freedom. Huh? Wait a minute. You just said there weren't any. Inherently existent sentient beings. Yeah, an inherently existent Tathagata cannot take across to nirvana. Okay? Because an inherently existent Tathagata would be permanent. You know, he doesn't depend on any other factors. Without depending on other factors, there's no way the Tathagata could act. So he couldn't teach people, he couldn't guide people. And if sentient beings were inherently existent, they also would be free of other factors. They couldn't be influenced by causes and effects. So even if the Buddha could teach them, nothing would happen because they were frozen in time. They're permanent. So they couldn't attain awakening. Okay? So it's got to be living beings who arise dependently, not independently, dependently do exist. And it's the dependent living beings that a dependently existent Tathagata carries across a dependently existing ocean of samsara to nirvana, which is also dependent. Okay. And somebody says, wait a minute, nirvana, how come nirvana is dependent? Nirvana is the unconditioned. It's the ultimate. It's the absolute that is beyond the world. Nirvana is existing out there somewhere as an absolute entity. Yeah, and I just have to get it, or realize it. Yeah. No, yeah, nirvana is dependent. It's not dependent on causes and conditions. It is permanent. But how do we realize nirvana? Through a dependent process of practicing. And nirvana itself exists by depending on terms and concept. In other words, a mind seeing the basis of designation of nirvana and giving it the name nirvana. So nirvana exists, but it's not some absolute, kind of thing that's independent of everything else somewhere out in the universe. Okay, we may have had that idea of nirvana. Yeah? Okay. I think that's good enough. Good place to stop. Okay. So, if you are left puzzled and confused, that's good. One of my teachers, we requested him to, this was many years ago, Geshe Sunam Rinchen, you probably know, to teach Gompa Rapsal, Tsongkhapa's illumination of the thought. And he said yes, so there was a small group of us that was studying afterwards, in the afternoon with him. And he loved getting us confused. he would say this and that, and we're all like the translator, Ruth Sonam, who's an excellent translator. Genla, what are you saying? And we're all sitting there going, we don't understand anything, And he's talking about horses and elephants appearing out of sticks and stones and and Genla would just sit there and laugh and laugh. But he was a really good teacher, yeah? Because if we had come out of that all thinking, oh, I understand it perfectly, I understand emptiness, but I'm the same old me and nothing's changed, then nothing's changed, has it? When we come out questioning and confused and wanting to think about something more and more, then that's progress. Okay? So he said, come out like, what are they talking about? Yeah? There's no sentient being, no living beings to carry a cross, but he's carrying across living beings. And he has attachment? What in the world? Yeah? So this is how we have to stretch our mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's dedicate.